Good morning, guys. Last episode, we really had a good conversation. I asked you a challenging question, and what I asked was if you were in Israel's shoes and you would have lost your son or your daughter at that festival when the Palestinians attacked, how many Palestinian lives would you say would equate to the life of your daughter or your son that you had lost? And that's the question that I had asked. And last episode then, we put ourselves in the Palestinian shoes. And I asked you, what would you do as the Palestinians? And what we came to was, yes, there would be just this natural resentment towards the Jews. We probably wouldn't really like them as a people. It would kind of be upsetting that they wouldn't want to integrate us as a people, but at the same time, depending on the kind of Palestinian I was, I would hate my culture, I would hate my institutions, and I would hate Hamas because they're not a group that is seeking peace that would benefit me and benefit my children. And that's the reality. When you put yourself in Palestinian shoes, you really ought to be like, what in the world? Sure, I don't like Jews, but can I stop this from the river to the sea crap? There's way more things that are important that I have to do than take over Israel and take over their land. I have my own piece of land. I have my own people. I have neighboring countries that I should be trying to ally with, and I should be trying to trade with, and I should be trying to implement a free market into my system. I should be trying to take care of my people. The citizens should be a priority for every country and for every culture. When I talk about superior cultures and inferior cultures, what I'm saying is an inferior culture does not take accountability for where its civilians are, for where its citizens are in life. If its citizens and civilians are suffering, if over 65% of people don't have access to basic care, if they're living in a third world country, then it's a failed culture. Third world countries, and when I say third world, what I mean is you look at that and you're like, wow, that's a third world. You know, like it's really blatantly just obvious. Well, those are failed cultures. Those are failed cultures. Now, almost every country, except for probably Sweden or something, has got just at least a little bit of a failed culture, because every country has a little bit of poverty, a little bit of hunger, and that's just the way it goes. But that's part of the human condition. That's just kind of what we expect to see, and that is what we will see. There's a certain percentage of people who are where they are because of 100% the actions that they've taken, because they don't want better for themselves, they haven't done better for themselves, and they have no intention of doing better for themselves. Even if you provided them work opportunities, they would say, no, that's not what I want to do. I went to Denver, Colorado. I went to Manitou Springs. I went to this camp, by the way. That was Summit View Camp. If you're an adult and you're watching this and you happen to have children, and you're wondering where you should send your child if you have the resources, it is called Summit View Camp or World View Camp. It's one of the most amazing things ever. It's where you initially really learn to think critically. It's where you have your ideas challenged. I remember one of the questions they asked us was, prove that God exists. And at the time, you know, so many kids were like, of course I can prove that God exists. And we're like, why couldn't we prove that God exists? But some of these ideas that they pushed at us, we had never been confronted with. Most of us realized that really not one of us in the room actually had the knowledge to prove that God existed. That's what we realized. And anyways, that was an amazing camp. But outside of this camp, there was, you know, these homeless areas, and I went up to these homeless people along with other camp members, and I asked the homeless people, hey, you know, what is the reason why you are, you know, where you are? What is it that someone could do that could help you? Is it a job that you're needing? Are you having medical conditions that aren't being covered? Like, kind of what could we do to get you back on your feet? And one of the guys' answer was, I refuse to work in this capitalistic system. That was his answer. He hated capitalism, therefore he was going to refuse to work. Now, some people are probably thinking, whoa, actually that makes a lot of sense. He was just ahead of his time. He was just ahead of his time. He's a good little Marxist. And other people will say, well, what in the world? Even if you do hate capitalism, and maybe someday you want to challenge it, maybe someday you want to vote differently, screw you, because, free market systems are kind of just the best it gets. But anyways, maybe he wants to challenge it. Maybe he wants to start a civil war over capitalism. But regardless, I mean, you wouldn't want to live in filth in order not to be a part of capitalism, right? I mean, you still want to be able to take care of your basic needs, and you still want to be able to work, right? That's what you would think. See, some people choose to live in poverty, and that's what I'm saying here. That's what I'm showing you, is that this person is choosing to live in poverty, and that was absolutely a choice. He didn't have to. He could have done something different, but that's just where he's at, and that's probably where he's gonna stay. Now, some people are probably still thinking that the example with Palestine really isn't fair, because I didn't capture really what's happened to them. I didn't really capture all the accusations that people have made about Israel and their treatment of the Palestinians, but I think what I've captured is sufficient. Is there a chance that that Israel perhaps killed a certain number of them? Probably. Did Israel mistreat them? Yes, probably. And I think that's just kind of a given as to what's going to happen when another country somewhat occupies. I understand that Israel wasn't occupying the Gaza area since, 2007 or something like that. Gaza has actually been ruling itself. But Israel in some sense has been monitoring their people. Now, what that means, all the information on that is confusing. The information is out there, so you're free to take a look at that and decide for yourself kind of what was happening. But at the least, let's just agree that Israel made mistakes, that Israel wasn't always doing the right thing, that the Palestinian people have the right to be upset, absolutely, and that the Palestinian people, of course, are going to just have this natural resentment towards the Jews because of the history with the Jews. That's just kind of expected. That's a given. We accept that. That's fine. Absolutely fine. What's not fine is continuing to accept your inferior culture, going to war with a superior culture, and then complaining about your losses once you begin to lose the war you knew you were always going to lose. It's just so foolish. It's just such a weak mentality. Do you remember in high school when you had that one annoying ass kid who just was like a chihuahua, and he'd do something stupid to the tougher superior kid, and he'd do something to the superior kid, and frickin' and the superior kid or the stronger kid would kick his ass, right? Everyone would just be like, whoa, what happened? Right? All the little sheep around are like, oh my God, he's bullying him. But anyone who knows what happened, anyone who knows the kid, anyone with kind of, common sense was kind of like, well, that's kind of well-deserved. And then, all the little sheep say, it wasn't proportional. I can't believe he hit him as hard as he did. He didn't have to hit him for a second and a third time. He could have just hit him once and knocked him down, No, I don't know. I absolutely don't know. It's one thing if the kid would have just, killed the kid, right? I mean, that would have been crazy. And I think what we can use is if Israel would have literally wiped out 100% of the Gazans, then we'd be talking about a problem. If they would have just nuked and wiped out 100% of the Gazans, then I think we could all go, whoa, holy smokes. But since they're not doing that, I don't think you have any place to talk. Neither would I tell that kid who punched that little shit that he shouldn't have punched him for a second or the third time. He's not killing the kid. The second punch teaches a lesson, and the third punch finalizes that lesson. It isn't always enough just to knock someone on their ass. Sometimes you have to remind them that you're going to get a little bit more. Sometimes you have to actually deter something from happening to you. And to deter someone from acting against you, sometimes you have to hit them more than once. You have to do a little bit more than just knocking them on their ass. A bloody nose, a black eye just isn't sufficient. You have to, black the other eye and open up the lip. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it takes a little bit more. And deterrence is the goal from the Jews' perspective. You want to deter this from happening. What's it going to take to deter a people who only understand death and war? What's it going to take to deter them? Well, probably some death, and probably, a little bit more than just a few civilian and enemy casualties. It's probably going to take a shit ton of enemy casualties mixed with civilian casualties, and that's just something. When you go to war, you understand that you're going to have to accept. But like I said, if we're not losing 100% of the Gazans, then of course we're going to lose quite a bit of civilians, and that's something that we have to accept. But we don't get to tell the person who was attacked what the proportionate response is. We don't get to give a number for proportionality. Keep your opinions to yourself. Stop being a little sheep. You don't get to determine how another country should respond to the losses of its civilians. You don't get to tell me how to respond to the loss of my son or the loss of my daughter. You don't get to tell me it isn't right that you think that you should be able to lose 150, 250K civilians because your daughter was taken and possibly raped for the last 2 weeks or 2 years. You don't get to tell me what is proportionate. I wouldn't care about your opinion. I really wouldn't give a damn. I really wouldn't. And the truth is, so many sheep who would like to think, because even though I gave you that great example last video, even though I gave you that great example, and I gave you an opportunity to be in a hypothetical and make a reasonable decision based off of being in someone else's shoes, a lot of people, especially sheep, still can't do it. There's still this mental blockade, so they can't actually put themselves in someone's shoes. They really have to experience pain and suffering to themselves before they can even entertain the thought of being realistic, of being based in reality. They really have to experience those things for themselves. So until their daughter gets dragged out of their home and raped, they're just kind of like, oh, la-di-da, life is what it is. There aren't preventative measures that I should take. All cultures are the same. All people are the same. I don't live in a bad community. These people aren't bad, right? Until this pain and suffering comes to their family, they really just got this mental blockade to where they're not going to be able to think past these problems. So that's really the expectation. So really what I'm thinking here is about 75% of Americans are not going to be able to put themselves in the shoes of the Jewish people. But 75% of Americans are going to be able to put themselves in the shoes of the Palestinians. Wait a minute. But how is it that if people can't put themselves in the shoes of the people of Israel, and they have this kind of mental blockade that prevents them from being able to think rationally in this hypothetical that I gave, then how come They don't have this mental blockade when they're going in the Palestinian shoes, especially if they're from, France or Hungary or America. What in the world? They haven't experienced a war-torn life. They haven't experienced their buildings getting bombed. They haven't experienced terrorist attacks for the most part. I mean, that's very uncommon for their lives. They live the easiest lives. So why is it that they don't have a mental blockade? Remember what I was telling you. It is the default position for people to think that they are victims. That is the default position. People will always just gradually on this slope kind of go to this place of victimhood. So that's kind of the default setting in most of the sheep's head. They're always thinking, I'm unfortunate. This shouldn't be happening to me. It's unfair. There's a ruling class. There's these institutions are all against me. There's this huge conspiracy about all these people who are in charge of my life and who are doing all these bad things, who are taking all these resources, and that is the reason why I have less than my neighbor. That's the way that they think. That is the reason why I have less than my neighbor, because I am victim. I am suffering. I am incurring loss. So every time that they see someone that's incurring even more loss and they're suffering even more and they're the underdogs, they immediately are able to step into their shoes because they're immediately able to kind of put themselves in the shoes of the people who are screaming that they are victims. They're just immediately able to understand, emphasize, and protest on the behalf of those people. There is something that happens to people to where they like to see someone who is not quite as strong, who has less resources, who has kind of an inferior state of existence. They like to see those people grow to heights because that's kind of what they think about themselves. Because they would like to see themselves where they are in their life go from making 60K, 100K, 40K a year to being those people in this society that's making 200 and freaking 50K, 300K. They want to be those people who are making six figures. They want to see the underdog just like themselves, who are suffering, who are victim of the institutions, victims of the hierarchy and the powers that be. They want to see themselves just like the other victims progress in life and become the strong. They want to see each other succeed because they think they are victims just like me. They are being oppressed by the strong, by their oppressors just like me. But why is it that Israel is deemed kind of an oppressor? Why is it that people oftentimes look at Israel like that? I mean, Israel is just this small little strip of people, and every country around Israel is Muslim. Every country. So why is it that Israel is looked at as the strong? Part of the reason that Israel is looked at as the strong is because Israel has been supported for quite some time by the United States. And the British government, it would seem, has intervened, maybe not on behalf of Israel, but against Israel's enemies as well. So Israel has had support of two rather large and powerful militaries in the past. Or things have been done to Israel's immediate enemies that have benefited Israel. Israel is also a Western country that holds our Western ideals. Even though Israel's founding isn't Christian like ours is. It is, shall we say, godly like ours is, because of course their founding comes from rather the Old Testament rather than our founding, which is based more so in the New Testament. So they have a piece of our values, of course, even though we're very different in ideals, very different in religion. They are also a Western country that have very similar ideals to us. What I'm saying here is Israel is considered more of a Western nation because they have some of the same ideals that we have. They have similar culture, and what you can see typically with Israel or Jews is they do quite well in other countries. Other countries may not like them, they may hate them, but they are able to usually assimilate quite well. They don't usually do terrorist attacks. They're usually not committing a high violent crime rate. The complaint from other countries usually is, they try to take over. I need to do extended research on that because I haven't really understood that claim that they try to take over. But I would say if such a small country with such a small percentage of people after the Holocaust especially is able to take over your country with 1 million people, then your country freaking sucks. Your country freaking sucks. That's crazy. like what? that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to even allude to the fact that people like the Jewish people, being as few as they are, could take over your country with 200 million or 320 million people. That's embarrassing. I would just say, just stop saying that. You're embarrassing yourself. That's crazy. Because if they have that much power, then maybe we should just let them take over. Because if just 500,000, 200,000 Jews are able to go to a freaking country and just take over that country, then maybe that's what God wants. I mean, if they are just that successful as a people that they can just rule countries as they take over with 500,000, 1 million people, then they truly are God's chosen people. I mean, maybe we're looking at this wrong, and they are God's chosen people, and that's why they are so successful in ruling the world. That's how the conspiracy theories came to be. That's why people are so naturally scared of them, because they have God's favor past what other people do. I mean, isn't that kind of what it looks like? I mean, unless you're literally telling me that 500 to 1 million Jews can take over your 200 million, 100 million population, which is just embarrassing and shows just how inferior your culture is, and just how weak your social cohesion is. If that's what you're telling me, then your culture, your country sucks. It sucks. That's just so freaking weak that you would literally lose to that small percentage of people. That sucks. So you might say, well, you're hypocritical because you think 500 to 1 million Muslims are going to come over and take over. No, I don't think they're going to take over. I just think there's a good possibility that if they're radicalized, well, they're going to start bombing places and freaking killing people. That's what I'm worried about. I'm really not worried about that with Jews. That's really not something that they're known to do. Not really. They, especially in America, they assimilate quite well into first world countries. Not only do they assimilate, but they are known for being rather successful. Kind of like Chinese, kind of like Japanese, kind of like Indians. They are rather good at assimilating, and when they're given those resources in a free market system, they do quite well. Just like other cultures. They're just people. They're just people. They're just people, man. That's what I'm trying to say, is they're just like other people from other cultures. They're just existing, they're just working, They happen to have high IQs, they happen to have high ambitions, and they happen to be rather well connected. And they happen to be tight-knit because they're very family-oriented, kind of like Indians. How many Indian doctors and medical staff can you think of? They do quite well. They do quite well in education, they do quite well in IT. There's no reason to hate them for doing well. I don't hate Indians, I don't hate Japanese, I don't hate Chinese. I love them. I want them to integrate into our culture. They bring so much to our culture. They're amazing people. Just like the Jewish people. They bring so much to our culture. Very smart, very hardworking, very successful. I love them. I love them. They are not known for these cultures that I just referenced to you. They're not known for having these failed cultures. They're not known for terrorism. They're not known for being in a cult. The Muslim group, the Muslim Brotherhood, and a lot of Muslims have that, they have, what am I looking for? The word. They have that stereotype that they really have to, you know, show society that they're not a part of, that they can move past, right? How should I say so I don't get canceled, man? What I'm saying is there is a certain stereotype about Muslims. There is a certain stereotype about their cultures and about their countries. And these stereotypes exist for good reason. Just like black people in America have stereotypes that they have to overcome, so do Muslims. That's not to say that black people or Muslims as individuals are not great people or don't have the potential to assimilate into great cultures, but you have to vet them a little bit better because of the stereotype. And what stereotypes tell us is that we should be careful. It's not that we should hate the people, it's that we should be careful. We should do a little bit more research, we should do a little bit more vetting, and we already know that we might have more problems with assimilation. In America, it's that with the black African American group, we might have more problems with our crime rates. And that's just something that we have to acknowledge. You're not being racist because you're acknowledging what's going on. We have eyes. We can observe what's happening in the world. And we should take preventative measures. We should. We should take preventative measures based off of facts, but also the stereotypes that we see, the statistics that we have, the failed cultures that we're able to observe. We should make decisions based off of those things. It's important. Your children's lives might actually depend on it. And guess what? Guess what? Because I'm not a sheep, not only am I considering my life, but I'm also considering my neighbor's life. I'm also considering that as well. So, I want you to continue to think about what we've spoken on today. These are really critical things I think that we have to understand. You truly should ask yourself why it is that you think that you would have any right or any place to tell the big kid that got punched by the little shit that he shouldn't have punched him more than once. That you get to draw the line for proportionality. Why is it that you think that? Why is it that you think that? I know for a fact that if you lost someone who you love dearly, you would not think that your neighbor had the right to tell you what acts should be taken at what proportion. You wouldn't like that. If you're a sheep, like I said, you're probably still going to say, "Oh, yes, I would. I know exactly what I would do. I would only allow 1,000 people to die if my daughter was taken and raped. Only 1,000 people. Man, shut up. Shut the freaking hell up. I can't stand sheep. Have a good one.